Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, guys, bringing you all the latest news and views from your favourite football team, from the only team that counts, Glasgow Rangers. Guys, obviously Michael Beale has had his pre-match press conference today, talking to the media about a number of different topics. Lots of information about Rangers transfer business this summer, so hang on for that. We will be talking about that in the video. Also, the fact that Alfredo Morelos will not play on Saturday, news about that, and who else will play on Saturday was also kind of hinted at and revealed by Michael Beale in his press conference. Lots of information to get through, lots of things to share with you. I think obviously the overriding themes that came out of today's press conference were patience over transfers, patience over the building of the squad, but obviously the desire to get that all done and dusted before the team start back into pre-season on the 30th of June. What else was topic? Energy, about resetting and bringing new energy to the team. That was very clear there. And obviously desire to finish on a huge positive and not be sat on a negative going into the summer. They were kind of the overriding themes of this press conference this afternoon, as Michael Beale talked to the assembled media ahead of the game against St Mirren this weekend. Now, obviously, guys, we have we will bring you that game here on Saturday. So please remember, if you want to catch up with that, hit that sub, ring that notification bell, and if you can give this video a like, guys, it does really help out. Also, remember, go back and check out the video that I released earlier today. Came out about 2, I think it was, this afternoon. For those of you who are catching the video now, for those of you who came out obviously on Friday afternoon, about a link to a left back called Archie Brown. Anyway, let's talk about this press conference. Let's talk about what Michael Beale has had to say to the media. So we talked about the fact that he has had an interesting first season as a football manager, which obviously started in the English Championship with Queen's Park Rangers. And now 50 games later, here he is sat as the manager of Glasgow Rangers. He said it's been a whirlwind, but a very pleasant whirlwind. And he said it was great to be back at the football club, and that he felt very comfortable in this job as Rangers manager. He talked about the fact that that he obviously been here before, but coming back to Rangers was a dream come true for him. So he's very positive. I think he is very much bought into the whole Rangers philosophy and the way of playing at the club, and that's a real positive in my opinion. In terms of Michael Beale and his future. In terms of of coming forward now, of getting ready for next season. He talked about the fact that, he was very excited about getting back to work for pre-season. He was very excited about getting this break over, which is a very different attitude to a lot of us, isn't it? How many of us talk about before we're about to go on holiday, the desire to get the holiday over and done with as soon as possible so we can get back to work. It's not kind of a normal thing, is it? You and I, when we're going away on our holidays, wherever we're going, we don't talk about the desire to get it over and done with so we can get back to work. But Michael Beale did this afternoon talk very much in that way, that he was very anxious to get back to work and get back to playing, back to working with the players. He was asked about transfers and where we are up to on transfers. He said there was 3 or 4 nearly there. He said that there was still lots of talk going on, lots of negotiating going on at the moment, and he was pleased with the progress that was been made on those transfers. In terms of those transfers going forward, he said obviously the transfer window is not open yet, and with games still ongoing across Europe in different European leagues, and obviously playoff final in England, and the Premier League still got one more week of games left to play. He said that don't expect anything to be announced imminently. That was a big thing for him today. Nothing to be announced imminently because of the fact, obviously, leagues have not finished yet and the transfer window is not open yet. So until the transfer window is officially open, nothing can be formally announced. He said he was relishing a full season. He was talking about resetting and having a very strong pre-season. That was something he kept coming back to throughout his press conference, the desire for a strong pre-season. And it does seem there's a real focus from what he was saying in the press conference and around the club about this pre-season, about the importance of pre-season. I think Rangers, looking back at the start of last season, really did, throw away the preseason. I don't think Gio got on top of the players' fitness. I don't think he got on top of the players' discipline. And I think that kind of knocked on across the whole of the season. And Michael Beale was playing catch up when he came in, and he's very much going to bring in the discipline, bring in the fitness, bring in all those essential elements you need in pre-season to bed your squad in. And I think that's something that Gio didn't do this last summer gone before this awful season we've just had. He said he was relishing that new season. He was relishing new players, new energy. And also the other thing that came across was he said that he's obviously looking forward to a pre-season where he can fully imprint his style, his tactics, and what he wants on the team. You know, it is historically very hard to come in a midpoint in a season and take over with someone else's players, with a squad that's already been through a pre-season, to change the way a team plays, to input what you want onto a squad. You know, Michael Beale's talked about playing three at the back at times this year, and he didn't talk about that in his press conference. But you know, to change that over so fundamentally, a change over a playing style so fundamentally is tough during a season. You know, with games coming thick and fast, you don't get the time to work with the players, to change the players. And I think last season was an odd one anyway, with the World Cup coming when it did. So Beale is very much looking forward to that pre-season, that ability to change over the team to what he wants. Again, he talked about full pre-season. He talked about optimism. He says, well, you know, he says we're a good team. He said, but we're going to be adding good players to make us even better. When he was talking about pressed about what the problems were, it was very much, and it was something that he brought up repeatedly in this press conference, was the fact the final third is a major issue for the team. He said that obviously Rangers are not clinical enough in front of goal. They don't take their chances. They're not putting the ball on the back of the net enough. And that was something that I think that all of us as fans have said, and all of us as fans could see in all of these games. You know, you go back to the Aberdeen game away at Pittodrie, where we lost that game, but we could have easily been 3-0 up at half time. Even the game against Hearts the other night, you know, I think there was a number of chances created. We just didn't take them. The games against Celtic this season, when we haven't taken chances, where we easily could have beaten them on at least 2 or 3 occasions. It's, you know, it's one of those, and it's something that we do need to address. And Michael Beale did say that in his press conference. He talked about the fact that he was going to bring in strikers with pedigree to make us more potent. That was an interesting line that I picked out of that press conference. Bring in strikers with pedigree, which sounds like it will be experienced players coming in who have got a good record and a good sound background in scoring goals. That seems to be the overwhelming thing. Does that rule out some of those younger, more inexperienced players? Possibly, from what he's saying there. He talked about the season as a whole. He said we had 3 or 4 difficult days, no doubt talking about the Cup semi-final, the Viaplay League Cup final, you know, the game at Pittodrie, to name but a few there. He said that we've won 22 out of 28 in the league when we've done well. We've done well in the league for a period of time. And, you know, he did acknowledge, however, in Scotland that you cannot rest on that, and that 22 out of 28 is perhaps not good enough in Scotland in a league where you cannot afford to drop points. So, you know, a lot or at all, really, in a league that is so tight between 2 teams as it is between that lot from across the city and our Glasgow Rangers. He also talked about the fact that he wants to put Europe right. You know, he said that obviously we'd had the fantastic run to the Europa League final. We've reached last 16s in the last few seasons, but obviously this season had not gone at all like we wanted it to, with an utter disaster in the Champions League, an embarrassment, you know, the worst performance ever by a team in the Champions League, which, you know, Michael Beale certainly has that intention to put that right. And I think from what he was saying and interpreting what he was saying, there seems to be a very strong desire to me to get back into the Champions League and to show Europe that we're not a pushover, that we're not an awful team, that we're not rubbish, that we have something to say and we have something to contribute to Europe's premier competition. Again, he brought it up, that thing, penalty boxes, we need to be more ruthless, which I think was very telling indeed. He said, good riddance. He said, obviously, the season will be done tomorrow. Good riddance to this season, which caused a chuckle amongst some of the media. I think a lot of fans will echo that. Good riddance to what has been an absolutely awful season for us in the blue half of Glasgow. Once again, Beale brought up this real need for a dual need, a strikers again. He said, you know, strikers are a priority. Strikers are a top priority. You know, he said that once we got into place the new players and once we got into place these people, that we would put in a strong challenge, was his exact words in the press conference, which is always obviously good. And he felt that, you know, that we were in a position to really strong challenge next season. And it's great to hear that he's got such a positive outlook looking forward. And, you know, as someone who's done coaching, it's not obviously to the highest level as Michael Beale, but someone obviously who's worked in that coaching side of things, you know, having that positive outlook and transmitting that positive outlook to your players half the battle, and giving your players that positivity is something you do need to do. And I think that is something that Michael Beale certainly does on a daily basis with the players in training. He said he talks as well about how next season's team will be better than the team I inherited. He said, also talked again about the fact that we need to get players in as early as possible. And he said that he'd driven the people who were doing the negotiating, James Bisgrove, some of the recruitment team, he'd driven them to them every single day that he wants them in as soon as is possible. Which is a thing we need to do. We do need these players in. We do need them bedded in. We do need them ready to go from day one. And that's something that lot from across the city have done on numerous occasions when they've regenerated their squad. When Ange Not a Clue came in, he did do that, didn't he? He got those players in early and worked with them early. He said he wants them in for the start of the season. He says he is confident that the majority of his targets will be in for the start of pre-season. But he says, I do feel we will have to be patient on one or two. Is that perhaps a nod to Jose Cifuentes, whose season doesn't finish till December in the MLS? He said, obviously, that we've got more work to do than in a normal summer. He says, it's not the way you would obviously like it. He says, usually, at a club like Rangers, we want to bring in one or two, send one or two out. That's it. He said, obviously, that will be different this summer as we obviously seek to massively overhaul the squad. He said that as well, there were one or two players who were in-house, was his words, that we need to sort out the futures of. No doubt a conversation that he is having with John Lundstrom, Borna Barisic and Kemar Roof and Glenn Kamara, no doubt. Obviously, Roof, Barisic and Lundstrom have only 1 year left on their contract, and it is obviously strongly rumoured that Glenn Kamara will be on his way out. And there's a big hint to the fact that Kamara is on his way out later in this video. He talked as well about the fact that, that we needed experience. And he said, when we talk about signing experienced players, he didn't mean people with grey hair. He meant or veterans. He meant people who've got experience of playing in Europe, people who've got experience of playing in top leagues, and people who've got big club experience. He says, obviously, bringing in those type of players will enable them to settle in a whole lot quicker to playing for Glasgow Rangers. And that's 100% correct. So when he talks about experience, I don't think he means 34, 35, 36-year-olds. Or even perhaps, the likes of Van Veen from Motherwell, who is going to be 32 at the start of next season. I think what he's clearly talking about is players that have had experience of playing Champions League football, of Europa League football, of playing in some of the biggest leagues around Europe, of playing for big clubs and having experience of playing against big clubs, so they know, what it's like to play for Glasgow Rangers, one of the biggest clubs in world football. He talked as well about John Lundstrom and his flexibility. I think from what he was saying today and how John obviously flexes around the team, plays midfield, drops into a back three, and how the team have sort of sometimes rotated or gone fluidly into a three, not necessarily all the time during games. That was kind of dropping a hint, I think, that Lundstrom will have his contract extended this summer. Then there was obviously a conversation around Stephen Davis. Now, obviously, Stephen Davis was not announced as one of those players who was leaving this off-season. The five that are leaving obviously were given their moment in the sun on Wednesday night, or the moment in the moon, whatever way you want to look at it. But he talked very much around Stephen Davis, and I think there was kind of a hint to Stephen's future given in what Michael Beale said without actually saying it. He said that obviously Stephen Davis would continue to rehab around the first team next season, and then when Stephen was fit, if he got back to being able to fit enough to play, a decision would be made on his future. He talked about how obviously the senior players like Scotty Arfield and Alan McGregor had the opportunity to finish their career in the way they had on Wednesday, and obviously with this season as well, and how Stephen obviously hadn't had that. And he talked about how he didn't want Stephen's career to end because of a training ground accident. And that was not the way for someone like Stephen's career to end. He said, obviously, once Stephen is fully fit, that Stephen and the club will make a decision as to his future. So I think there was a little hint there that perhaps Stephen Davis is not done as yet as a Rangers player and may have a role to play next season. He did, however, drop a huge hint about him coaching. That was a big thing I thought I picked out of it. He said that Rangers need to build a legacy. He said that there is a link between the academy and the first team. He said, obviously, when Gio's gone out, there's been a big changeover. There's been no sort of consolidation there between academy and first team. He said, obviously, that Stephen was focusing on trying to play at the moment, but obviously they did need coaches in the future and coaches who could bring in that Rangers legacy, who understood what it was to be a Ranger, to play for Rangers, and to develop that link between the academy and the first team. Now, that to me sounds like a big hint that Stephen Davis could take on a coaching role at the club, something in the academy maybe, academy director. I don't know, perhaps it's a bit too early for that to be taken. That is available at this moment in time. Beale also touched on the fact that obviously that he was concerned again about the fact that chances haven't been taken in games, the fact that away games against Celtic and Aberdeen were areas where they could have taken more points this season, and was upset about that. He was then asked, obviously, about the game on Saturday and how he would go in terms of team selection. He said, he was asked, would some of those players that played on Wednesday night play again on Saturday, or is it going to be again about a case of looking to next season? And he said, no, Wednesday night was for that, e.g. giving the players who are leaving their moment in the sun. And this was very much for looking for next season. He said that Cholak would be back in the squad in place of Alfredo Morelos. So it sounds like Alfredo Morelos' career at Rangers is done and he will no longer wear the blue shirt and he will not be playing on Saturday. And that Bailey Rice would be in the place of Glenn Kamara, dropping a huge hint there. I think that Glenn Kamara's days at Rangers are well and truly numbered, that he's obviously been replaced by Bailey Rice for the squad on Saturday against St Mirren. So it sounds to me like, again, McCrory will return in goal. And obviously a number of young players will get their opportunity on Saturday against St Mirren. It does sound to me, obviously, like that those players that are on the way out will not feature, and players, players like Glenn Kamara also look like their days are well and truly numbered. At this club. That is a huge hint there dropped by Michael Beale. He praised St Mirren for their recent form and talked about their home form being good and how they would want to go out on a high. But he said he didn't want to end the season on a negative and sit on a bad result until pre-season started. He wanted to end on as positive as possible. He was also asked about whether he'd be taking time off over the summer. He said he will be taking a week off at some point in June, but he said it's hard to relax when you're a manager. He said with your players away on international duty, like Nico is going to be away with the under-21s, Belgian under-21s at the under-21 championship. He said there will be a lot of watching of football. He said his phone was constantly ringing, so he would be answering his phone. And he said the biggest thing he was going to this summer was looking forward to the 30th of June when Rangers would be back to pre-season. And like I said earlier on, it's a strange one, isn't it, to hear people wishing away their holiday so they can get back to work. So certainly a very interesting press conference today from Michael Beale. Lots of hints there about the future, lots of hints about obviously players exiting the club and even players who are under contract like Glenn Kamara exiting the club as well. Again, I think, like I said, the overwhelming themes, positivity from Michael Beale about the future, the need to reset and re-energize, which I think is very positive. What we need for this club is definitely that reset and re-energize. Also, the fact that, transfer business, there is a need for patience there, but they will get players over the line. It's just obviously with the window not being open at the moment, we can't obviously push those deals through. And like he said, there are still games taking place across Europe. So overwhelmingly, a very positive press conference again from Michael Beale, a very positive outlook for the future, that we will be ready, we will reset, we will go forward, and we will be ready to compete with that lot from across the city again next season and really push them hard. I think a lot harder than we have done this season. And I honestly can feel that we are in a great position with the signings we are making, with the eye that Michael Beale has for a player to really go on and get 56 next season, and as well cups to win as well as obviously do well in Europe. And it does seem that Michael Beale has a determination to get back into the Champions League and show the rest of Europe that we are not perhaps the pushovers that people think we are after the disaster that befell us in the Champions League last season under Gio van Bronckhorst. Well, guys, let me know what you think of what Michael Beale has had to say today in the comments below. Victoria and I love to read your comments, and we always try and answer them as soon as possible. And also remember, guys, if you want that team, your team every single day, if you want the podcasts, the live streams, podcast, I've got some great guests coming up. I've been lining up some great guests from other pods and also from the club. So please remember to hit that sub, ring that notification bell as well. And if you want to find us anywhere else on social media, you can find us on Twitter at GRN1872. You can find us on Instagram, Glasgow Rangers Nation. You can find us on Facebook, Glasgow Rangers Nation Official. Very important, that official. You can find us on TikTok at Glasgow Rangers Nation. You can find the email. You can email us as well, glasgowrangersnation@gmail.com. And you can even buy Victoria and I a coffee if you really want to. www.buymeacoffee.com. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming onto the video today. Thank you for catching up on the latest to do with our fantastic club. I will be back to speak to you again really soon here on the channels, obviously, as well as bringing you the live stream of the game tomorrow. Thank you for watching. And as always, remember, guys, we are the people.